business is. It's just a small little idea that starts off in your head, and then you play with the idea and you plan it and you put together a business plan proposal. And then once you actually now are done with that phase and you actually embark on the journey of actually starting to play it out, then you see the Lord opening up doors. Then it's like you've taken one step and everything else becomes unlocked. And you know, Mario was that game. Literally, it's like once you've passed a certain stage, the Lord then says, okay, well done, good and faithful servant. Let's now unlock. Let's now go on to the next level. And I think that's what business is. It always seems so intimidating what business is, but it's really like a small little idea that you get that really seems insignificant until you actually start working on it, and the Lord just makes it so much bigger.
I am joined by Mr. Lebogang Mokubela, who is a visionary and a leader in business, who is in marketing and also in the mining industry. Not only that, but we have the wonderful, incredible Miss Xola Madubedube, who is leading a business called The Penthouse that was formerly known as NHD. But also she leads and runs a business that's called Fifth Avenue Style Connection. Welcome to the both of you. I would like for us to really start in the beginning of things, the genesis of things. People just see you becoming leaders, you leading this incredible ministry. But I think it is also important that for someone who is starting themselves, or for someone that's really trying to find themselves, that they would know that you guys also have a story. And so I'll start first to ask for you guys to really just tell the people who you are, who you are, who is Lebogang Mokubela, not just your passion, not just your business, but also your heart for business and entrepreneurship.
That question is always a difficult question for me to answer. I've been doing interviews, probably for 10 years now. And every time they ask me that question, I always don't know where to start. But my journey in business started literally in the church. The first church that I was a part of, a pastor saw what I could become, and he saw the grace for business pretty much in me, and he mentored me in a place where now I could walk in it and get to a place where I understood what I carried. And it started in the platform as the church, as a youth ministry exercise that became a business. That is why for me, I personally, I love the local church, because it's in the local church that we learned who Lebogang is, even before Lebogang knew who he was, But nonetheless, we started that journey in business. My first business closed down 2-3 years later, purely because there was no business acumen. There was zeal, there was fire, but no business acumen. And then I then left business and went into corporate to learn as much as I can learn from the acumen side of things. And that's when I stumbled upon the world of marketing. I stumbled upon the world of marketing in brand activation. From brand activation, I went into digital marketing. Then I left to pursue my own business, which was first Lemok. Lemok moved into shopping center marketing. Then now we are in mining marketing. And over the years, we've expanded beyond just marketing businesses, but also having e-commerce businesses, and now going into actual mining operations, And so the journey is that. But I think my heart for business is always helping kingdom entrepreneurs understand what business is. Not just naming your business El Shaddai and you think that's it, really understanding what it means to build and construct a proper business that works. For me, my heart is in that. Every time I meet a young person that says, I want to start a business, my basis is, let me teach you how. This is how it needs to look. Give me the structure so it makes sense. And then once we have structure, we can always build upon the structure. So for me, I think I've answered your question in the best way.
You have. And interestingly, there seemed to be a bit of a gap between someone that would move from marketing to mining.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
There's a gap on that, and I think we'll get more into that. And I would like for you, Ms. Xola, to actually tell us about yourself. Who are you? Who is Xola Madubedube? Are you a brand? Are you a business owner? Just tell us more about yourself.
So I share the exact same sentiments about this question, but I think it is quite important to answer it. I am Xola. I'm a mom. I think currently being a mom is my DNA. It's who I am, literally. And I run a business called The Penthouse, as you've mentioned, as well as fashion labels, Fifth Avenue and Style Connection, as well as other businesses which I'm not too upcoming or upfront about them. But the important thing about me, or where my journey started, is I remember, I think I was just 19 or 20. I really, for me, business has really been about responding to my needs or my pain points or my struggle. And I think for me, that's what I've understood business to be. And that's what it's been for me, literally. The one thing that I feel like I'm struggling with, or I'm having a challenge with, or it frustrates me, immediately when I respond to it, I then get an idea or a business idea out of it. And so started working at my sister's salon, quite a popular hair salon. And while I was working there, I just discovered that natural frontals were not looking as natural as I think they should be. Okay. You know, we grew up watching Motara bangs, and I thought for the longest time it was her hair. Kanti, it was not her hair. So when I discovered that, okay, this is actually not Tara's hair, I then wanted to, I got an interest to also introduce that kind of installation or that kind of look to the South African market. And that's when I sought out to find the HT lace. So HT was one of the very first companies in South Africa to bring HT laces to South Africa. You know, I think I stand by that. And so once we brought that, a lot of people then wanted to also buy into it. I saw a business model, and I literally jumped into the Sun HT. So I moved away from my sister's company, and then I formed the Sun HT. With the fashion labels as well, it was just me wanting simple dresses. That's Style Connection, because I started Style Connection. My sister started Fifth Avenue. And with Fifth Avenue, my sister had just had a baby, and she was feeling slightly overweight and a little bit not confident, you know, but she still wanted to look stylish. She was going back to the office. So then she came up with this. She had a factory already to do hair. So then she would make designs and she would give it to the machinist, and then they would make those designs for her. And then from that came a business, Fifth Avenue, which is more for the plus size ladies who want to be conservative, want to cover up, but still look comfortable and chic and stylish. And then Style Connection, which was my baby, it's just simplistic items. I'm a simplistic girl. I like to look clean, but also very minimal. I don't like to think about what am I going to put together. You know, I just want to put one outfit, one suit, and look good. And so Style Connection was a response to that. And from that as well came a business. But really for us, the magic then happened when we collaborated the two businesses together, and then we started making them available literally in one store. So in all the malls that we are available in, which is in Cape Town, Durban, Johannesburg, we are available under one roof. And so that has just been my journey in business. It's really been answering my pain points, finding answers to my struggles and my challenges. And then from that, a business idea comes. It's almost like the Lord literally wants me to suffer a little bit before. And then in finding the solution for that, I literally then come up with a business. And I think a lot of the businesses that I have, that's literally the story of my life.
I think that's another way to look at it, to say, you know, whatever becomes your own personal pain point, maybe God is communicating something.
It's giving you an idea.
You know, maybe the very thing that you feel like, you know, there are people that you get bothered when people litter, and you just like, okay, let me just start something that is going to solve, because business is about solving problems.
That's literally what it is.
And I think it's very interesting to realize that when everyone thinks about business ideas, you know, just want to have a vision first, and the Lord has to say
and they always think about something really big, you know, and that's what business is. It's it's just a small little idea that starts off in your head, and then you play with the idea and you plan it and you put together a business plan proposal. And then once you actually now are done with that phase and you actually embark on the journey of actually starting to play it out, then you see the Lord opening up doors. Then it's like you've taken one step and everything else becomes unlocked. And you know Mario most that game. Literally, it's like once you've passed a certain stage, the Lord then says, okay, well done, good and faithful servant. Let's now unlock. Let's now go on to the next level. And I think that's what business is. It always seems so intimidating what business is, but it's really like a small little idea that you get that really seems insignificant until you actually start working on it, and the Lord just makes it so much bigger.
Yeah. Is it not the same? I think we see the same model in the life of Joseph, because he starts by solving the problem for Egypt. But later on it says the people of the world, the nations came to buy. So it essentially started with him solving a problem for Egypt.
Absolutely.
But then it ended up being a global impact. And I think that's the beauty of vision, that is why, the Bible tells us, even if it tarries, I think the tarrying is not so much delay more than it is revelation.
Yes.
That it reveals itself as you engage,
as you embark on the
it continues to grow and grow and grow. So the moment you start saying, I want to get into property and I see myself opening 100 apartments, it's going to seem very daunting.
Yeah.
Although that may be the vision that you carry. Start with that one apartment that you're not even building yourself, you're buying from a development.
Absolutely.
Build into that way you get into the confidence and the workings of them. So I feel like sometimes that's the problem. You get a ref payment and you just jump into this big behemoth of
catching strays.
You see, even with mining, you find these people come into mining, they want to go buy trucks and they don't understand the inner workings of that business model, and they find themselves sitting with millions of assets, but they can't sustain that business because there's contracts, there's diesel, there's all these nitty-gritties that go into it. And I think it's the way you said it, so it's beautiful to understand that. That's like how our apostle always says it, that if something bothers you in the church,
you're probably called to do it.
You're probably called to it.
Absolutely.
And so that's it. Business is about problem solving, not fancy things. Because now you see Uber, like now I'm going to create my own app that will transport just in the brand, because you saw Uber working.
Yeah.
But is this really a problem
that you're solving?
That you're solving? Because then when you understand it as a problem, that's where the business model comes into play. I love, for example, you were saying that HD lace. I don't know what it means, but it's fine.
It's okay.
It's okay, But so it was not a thing of saying, oh, my sister sells hair, I'm also going to find a cheaper supplier. So I can, if she's 1,000, I'm going to be 950. It's not that.
Yeah.
There's a problem.
It was not competing. And
Exactly.
I think that's also so important to understand that we might be called to the same industry, but we should be responding to different needs within that industry. And we mustn't necessarily think that we are all called to do business the same way in that
100%.
industry.
I think it's like when you're baking a cake. Find your ingredient, Find if someone has the flour, sell the eggs. But it all forms part of this whole in the cake that you go into then. So having to find that. But talking about you mentioned something about building gradually. I wanted us to actually go back to what I initially asked. How do you move from marketing? How do you move from marketing to then mining? I think that's a big leap.
Yeah, it's a big leap when you look at it in an aerial view.
Okay.
You just see a man who's just jumping from marketing.
Take us to that gradual.
Look, it first starts with the understanding of a prophetic word that I was given. One of the prophetic words I was given is that wealth, multiple streams of wealth. And so my understanding has always been any opportunity that comes, I do not say no to it because it does not fit the confines of where I am now.
Okay.
My view is if there's an opportunity that I see and my spirit says go for it, I will have the idea at 7 p.m. 10 p.m. it's launched, say.
It's the urgency. Don't you find that most entrepreneurs that I know have such an urgency, and that's why you can find us doing so many different things at one go, because you get an idea. And once you get the idea, you get such an urge to make sure that you actually start doing it. And then the beauty then comes in because once you take one step, then God says, I got it.
And I've always been cognizant of what God does, you know, in terms of the people he brings me around. You find yourself sitting in a meeting and you're looking at these people like, when did I get to this place where we're discussing mining opportunities?
Yeah.
I'm the least in the room because I don't even understand what they're talking about, you know. But my inclination has always been, today I may not know. Let's meet tomorrow. You know, I either know the same as you or I know more.
Yeah.
You know, and so how I got into the whole mining thing was I just recognized that, man, there's something God is doing around me. It started with Lemok, with us doing marketing services for mining companies, but I could recognize that the mining in itself is opening doors, you know, and then people around me in my close circle are in the mining industry, and the opportunities, I'm like, wait, man, I see this pattern, you know, and I'll be foolish not to take advantage of this thing. And it's just a simple conversation, you know. There's an opportunity that I'm building now with a tech company for a tech solution with one of these big smartphone brands. I'm not going to say names. And yesterday I was praying about it because I'm hitting a brick wall, you know. And in my prayer, the Holy Spirit says, go for it by faith. Everyone is telling me it's impossible because that brand does not work with normal small people. But what I've learned is that when the opportunity comes to my ear, man, I'm going for it. You know, I may not understand the business today, but the inclination to learn, you know, that's what in episode 1 where Apostle was saying to us that Joseph is not just a dreamer, but his revelatory, his ability to have revelation is what gives him strategy. So we relegate Joseph just dreaming. No, he's a strategist. But his strategy comes from the divine more than anything. And it's the understanding for me that once it catches my ear, the only thing I need to do, Holy Spirit, what do we do?
Revelation.
Revelation. All I need is the revelation of where's the opportunity here.
Yeah.
You know, even with shopping centers, a lot of people were shocked that, shopping centers have marketing budgets. I didn't even know. But for me, it was not necessarily a strategy. It was purely by revelation. And it was purely by the steps that God put in front of me that I found myself in meetings with a marketing manager, and she's telling me she runs 2 shopping centers. And I'm like, oh, what's your budget? In the millions. Man.
I'm your guy.
I'm your guy. Let's have the conversation. And so I think it's pretty much that you know, when we look at just a person moving from marketing to mining, it looks a bit odd. But when you look at the steps and the directions that God will nudge you in, you know, you will find yourself. And I think it's so important identity is so important, because how you view yourself may limit you even for the things that God says go for it, because you're like, mining. I know nothing about mining. But in that moment, I'm like, yes, I may not know, but my inclination is always to know. So I may not know now, but hey, I have my friend ChatGPT. We are going to do research on this thing.
Let's work, my friend.
Let's work. We're going to research this thing until we understand it, until we understand the opportunities that are coming up. Rail is opening up to private players. You know, where do we come in? Is it not just trucking? There's rail coming in. How do we become that? You know, so how do we become a player in those places? And so it is identity is important, because it's how you're going to filter also the opportunities that come through you rather.
It's so true.
Yeah.
And also it's that thing where we also rely so much on ourselves and on our own ability, so much so that we then begin to think that we can only be in industries that we know stuff about or that we are fully informed about. And we truly forget that as kingdom entrepreneurs, we are led by God. And really, most of the time, most of even our stories, when we recall all the things that we've been through and how we've grown our businesses, you begin to realize that it's very little of strategy. And maybe even the strategy that you had, very little of it yielded real results. Most of it was really setting up moments where you saw the Lord just really setting you up, and you're like, I walked into a setup here, and I'm so glad. And so we really should not be limited in any industry. We should be doing anything in any industry that we feel inclined at that particular moment. Like Lebo is saying, if you feel the nudging to go this direction, to sit in on this meeting, maybe your friend is in an industry that you've never even been in, you know, or that you know nothing of. But if you feel like, okay, my friend has invited me, I'm in this meeting, let's hear what's happening. And for me, literally, I just put one foot and see. You know, when the door opens, you know it. If you're a kingdom person, you know it. You know it when it starts becoming a little bit easy. And for me, that's always a cue. Let's push into this. Let's see where it can.
So here's my question to both of you, based on what you're saying.
Okay.
So where does this notion then to say follow your passion comes in? Where does it come in? Because if we're talking about nudgings and we're talking about where God is leading you, sometimes He's going to lead you into things that you have no idea about, therefore you're not passionate about, because you have no idea. So where does passion come into this?
I think for me, and I'll speak specifically for myself, my passion and what I then got to love was an answer to a lot of the things, and it introduced me to the world of entrepreneurship. It made me gain confidence in the fact that I can actually make a business work. I can grow a business. I can sustain a business. Because in as much as we're spiritual and all of that, it's important to do something and win in order for you to gain the muscle and the confidence, you know. So for me, doing what I loved and then making that a business made me gain the muscle and the confidence to say, I can actually do this, you know, it's not too bad, you know. Obviously with the Lord helping us a lot, but it makes you then gain the confidence to say, I don't know about this industry, I don't know about this, but if I feel like I'm being pulled this direction, surely I can learn. I mean, I started somewhere, even with the passion.
Pulling from the confidence.
Pulling from the confidence. There's something that winning or getting good at something builds in you, that gives you the confidence to feel like you can really do anything that you put your mind to.
I think it's also a journey of discovery. I think God always sets us up to discover ourselves. You know, there are things that may not be passions in the start of things, but as you mentioned, that God began to put you in rooms and around certain people that began to have certain conversations. And those conversations in themselves, they spark something in you, you know? So I think in our journey with the Lord, especially also in business, is that we are discovering who have been called to be. We don't have that in its entirety.
We're working out our salvation.
Yes, you know, the book of Philippians says that He causes for us both to will and to do. So the desire in itself comes from Him. You know, and so He would set you up. For instance, with David, I don't think David had a dream, you know, like Martin Luther King. I have a dream to become a king. You know, I don't think that was within his imagination, because kingship is by blood and by royalty and all of those things. But it was until Samuel came and said, do you know there is such a possibility? And this is what I came to do. You know, he didn't even get to be interviewed to be a king. A man came and said, I came to anoint you. And most of the time when it comes to destiny and comes to the things that God has called us into, He will always put us in the rooms where what He has put in us as a seed will then become alive. And then that's where I think then our passions have to align with His will and what He has placed in us. Yeah.
You know, Apostle always says when a season changes, it's important to recognize the season, but also to align your mindset with what God is doing. And for me, when we first had that conversation with the Apostle, to say, oh, so it's possible for a person to miss it, that you're in the room, but you're not realizing that in this room, you're actually being called to a higher position. It's not to take selfies and like, did you know who I was with tonight?
That's so sad.
You know, like, it's not about posting with I was with Xola. You know Xola.
He's my friend.
But, but now you're in a setting and you're like, you know, I recognize when Xola said she started a business around a passion or around the issue. And I'm like, you know what? I've always had issues, man. With shoes men wear. That our shoes are so plain. For my shoes with lace, how can I put a zip
Apostle usually says something, Apostle usually says something. He says, God does not give you what you do not care about. And I think having listened to what you were saying, that God awards curiosity. There's a sense of seeking, as you said, that if I may not know now, but because I'm curious enough to seek after
God will help you.
God begins to help us. I think that alignment is very important, especially in the journey of business, that you don't become ignorant. I think ignorance is such a costly thing for us, especially if we're going to build with God and build business with God. I just want to ask just another question. In terms of Joseph's company, Mr. Mokubela, what is it? Why do you think you were chosen to lead this particular ministry?
That was the first question I asked myself when Apostle called me that we are launching the Joseph's Company ministry. Was the first question I asked myself. I battled with it until I had a conversation with him, and it's clear. My inclination to always want to be teaching people and to be grooming people has always been something that's in me. And so it's a grace area for me. And with Joseph's Company, for me, I feel that it's purpose lived for me. When I can see someone that came in with just an idea, and they have nothing except an idea. And 12, 18 months, 36 months from now, this guy or this lady is running $1 million business, hiring 3 people, we're opening new warehouses. For me, that's destiny personified, that's purpose personified for me. And so I believe I was chosen because that's something I'm passionate about. For me, I always say it's very hard for me to be jealous of someone who's in business, because that inspires me anyway. Maybe I'll be jealous, I don't know about what. You have nicer shoes, maybe. But when it comes to business, for me, is that I study business. I live for that, to say, man, that's why, we were talking about the next guest that we want to have. And that lady, I studied her, and I was like, man, what this lady is doing is beautiful, and how she just grew from COVID and taking the opportunity just to sell eucalyptus oil that grew into what it is today. Those journeys for me inspire me that, man, how can that's why don't waste the recession, don't waste the opportunities that present themselves, and the way she took advantage of it. So for me, I believe I've been chosen to lead this ministry purely because it's in a grace area for me. It's not, I don't have to force myself into it to say, hey, we must do it. No, it's already a grace area. So for me, it comes naturally. When I see someone come and say, I want to start a business, I say, let's sit here until you get it right, So, yeah.
And then, Ms. Xola, I want to ask you this, and this is the last question. What does the success of Joseph's Company look like to you?
Sure. I think it's pretty simple, as Apostle had already broken it down a little, episode 1. And it is bringing kingdom entrepreneurs to a place where they understand what their mandate is and what their positioning should be in the marketplace. It is making them understand what it looks like to be Joseph. What are the strategies that we need to be employing? But also making entrepreneurs understand that business and God are not two separate things. It is literally one thing. It is the same thing. You have to stick close to the Lord to gain your strategy, to gain your revelation. I wake up so early in the morning, and my sister always says, let's go to gym, let's go play golf. Labor's invited me a couple of times as well. But when I wake up in the morning, it's my prime. It's the time where I'm most productive, and I want to spend the time with the Lord. It's like in the Lord's Prayer when it says, give us this day our daily bread, because I've understood that in business, you have to stick close to the Lord daily. He has to give you your daily bread, And so I think it is entrepreneurs understanding how close we need to stay to the source, because He's the vision giver. And if He gives us the vision, He's the one that literally will give us the revelation as well. He is the one that will give us the strategies. And we will look good in front of people who would say, we've got a plan. Gandhi, you get your plan in the secret place. And like Apostle said, it's not a magical thing that will come out in a dream, but it's literally the moment after praying and after centering yourself and saying, Lord, what does my day look like in business today? Where are you leading me today? And you just begin to get all these ideas. It's okay, I want to do this. And you just have clarity over your day. And so it's really getting entrepreneurs to a point where they understand what is our mandate, especially in this season, with the coming recession as well that we've come to know. I think now it's no longer just a nice to do, but it's become quite an assignment to say we have to get entrepreneurs, kingdom entrepreneurs, to be in formation, to understand that we are assigned, we're called for such a time.
Okay. Thank you so much. That's so powerful. Give us our daily bread.
Yep.
No, give us.
I saw you wanting to laugh there.
Here's one.
Can I ask before the last one?
I was going to ask the last question because I asked the last question. Sorry.
The last one, and I think I have a question for both of you, but I'll start with you, Mr. CEO. You mentioned and you've been quite public about the first. I'll say it's a failure, even though we know what it is today.
Yeah.
The first closure of your business or the failure of the business. Has that had any relation with how you do business today and now and all the other businesses that you do? You know, I was sitting with my sister the other day, and a couple of years she failed a grade in school, and she was just explaining to me how that experience of failing a grade in school literally almost cripples her till date, where she is scared. If she feels a little bit off, she gets into anxiety mode because she knows what it feels like to be in that position. So how has that failure affected you and how you do business today?
So the truth of the matter is it's not something that I've dealt with. I totally agree with what your sister is saying, because the moment things start shaking, you're already thinking, oh my gosh, not this again. And I think now it's even worse because I'm a father and my husband. Then I was single me. So whether you're making money or not, it's just you look out for yourself. But now, should a business fail, I have 3 other people that are looking to me. And so it is a great stress point for me. It is one place, but also Apostle has been teaching me. Pastor Edwin has been sharing with me the scripture. I think it's Mark 11, 28, 29 that says
Matthew
that says the Lord Jesus says, come who are heavy laden. But there's a part in the Message Bible that says, tap into the unforced rhythms of grace. Where it's not about my striving, that, okay, Lord, what are we doing? I resonate with the daily bread thing, that what are we doing here? Because I realize myself, there's failure somewhere, So I would rather go to the one who doesn't fail. But it does affect me from time to time. It does affect, even when God says, don't worry, this is fine. You go to Apostle kicking and screaming, my prophet, what are you saying? What does the Lord say? Like, are you okay? I'm not. But
mental health.
I'm not okay. But it's then that thing that you start realizing, no, it's past trauma.
Yeah.
And when you are aware that it is past trauma, I think it's easier for you to manage it because you're aware, oh, this is just a trigger. It's not the reality. I think it's hard when you don't have the introspection that is it trauma or is it the actual circumstance?
Yeah. Or you want to be hyper spiritual about it and not actually acknowledge or admit or soak in what it's done. And therefore you are able to quickly identify when you are going into that default mode.
And you self-sabotage. Because nothing is falling apart, it's just you
it's
in your
mind.
Your
right.
So you overdo things, and then because of that, and then you start sabotaging yourself. What was not broken is now broken.
Is now broken in your mind. Sure. And then Pastor Ed, my question to you was, I think 2 years ago, and I'll start with myself, I was landing. I think we were traveling, my sister and I had the most excruciating pain of my life. But I thought, being a woman, you have those pains sometimes, Landed, I went home. 2 days later, the pain was it was consistent. I ended up going to hospital. Before the 2 days going to hospital, actually, I took a test and I found out we were expecting, my husband and I. We were happy, we started planning and all of those things, but I realized that this pain is consistent, it's still there. So 2 days later, we go to the hospital. When we get to the hospital, they do some tests. immediately something was wrong. Like there was extreme tenderness in my stomach. The doctor was like, oh my gosh, what is going on? You know, they did tests. They found out that, okay, you are pregnant. We're worried now because you are pregnant of this tenderness that's happening, because it shouldn't be like that. Fast forward, they found out that I had an ovarian ectopic pregnancy, right? Which was fine. I think it was difficult, but it was just 2 weeks in. So I wasn't too, but I think for me, the greatest challenge was the fact that I almost lost my life, because literally I bled so much. They drained like over 2 liters of blood when I had to do the surgery, because I had to do the surgery to take out the pregnancy or the egg and all of those things. But I think for me then, the loss of, or me almost losing my life and then losing obviously then the baby, made me then so ready to face the next phase of my life in business, where when I came back, I literally almost started from scratch. Every employee that I had, and obviously there was betrayal there. There was a lot of things that had happened, but I lost people that I had considered family because I was very tight-knit with them. In my first pregnancy, they literally ran my business while I couldn't work, you know. So I think in hindsight now, had I not gone through that loss and through that period of almost even losing my life and coming back from that, I would have struggled to understand the transition that was now happening, where I had to start all over again with completely new employees, you know. So I think for me, that's what I look at that lesson as. Of course, there's other things as well. But Pastor Ed, I know you've shared, and I'm asking you this, it might be a little bit personal, but I'm asking you this because you've also gone through a similar thing. But when you consider that today, what do you think the lesson of loss between you and your wife has taught you, maybe in business and in how you approach business and just some of the things that you also desire to do? Do you think you're still working it out, or have you found your lesson or your...
Here's my lesson. At the end of loss, there is him. I think in my experience, I learned to be vulnerable. I learned to be vulnerable. I mean, he has seen me cry. He has seen me in pain. He has seen me through that whole, and many others, you know. I've learned that at the end of loss, there is God. And ultimately, what then builds the willingness to go through life and rebuild and find yourself is knowing that he has not failed. I may have lost this, but he is still faithful. And I think having to really lean on the faithfulness of God, that's where you find clarity that even when you build business, you're not building business with the fear of what if I lose?
if you lose?
No, because I have a guarantee that I have him. And I think in anything that we build, the ultimate goal is him. You know, even when we establish businesses, even when we establish anything, even marriage in itself, the ultimate goal of it is him, that we may know him. You know, and that we may find him within our marriage. And for my marriage, I think that has been a blessing.
Right.
You know, that has been a blessing. I'm more closer with my wife. And there's
More
just
vulnerable.
a certain bond that was created through that loss, you know, a certain establishment of our marriage, which was at the time fairly new. We were just on the second year of marriage, you know.
Yeah.
And I think now, that's
There's nothing you can't do.
There's nothing that I
think
can't
for
do
me,
or I'm afraid of. You know?
Because it's like you've gone through the worst. The worst has happened. And so anything that could happen or potentially happen in business, you will be just fine. You know what I mean? And it also speaks to the loss that can happen also. There's a lot of grievings that we actually go through as entrepreneurs. You know, there's a loss of the initial plan sometimes. Sometimes you had a specific way of how you wanted to do something, of how you wanted the vision to play out. And so in the moments you in your secret place and you're just like, but this was never supposed to be like this. And we grieve a lot. And then you have to come back from it and sort of ask the Lord again and re-strategize and come back stronger. And sometimes you need to close this business and start another one. And so really being an entrepreneur, you need to not be afraid of loss, of failure. You need to not be afraid of change, you know, because for me, I hate change. You know, maybe things have changed now, but before I really used to like things to go a specific way. I'm quite structured in my, in just my inclination. And so business has taught me to be extremely flexible. Yeah.
Okay, we have come to the end of our episode for today, and we'll see you on the next episode. Blessings. Bye-bye.